Did I what?
Like crown foot. I called it like rally foot. Like
So
everywhere I went, I was like smashing it to the floor. I'm like, why am I driving like this? You
this
can't
is
drive like this every day.
it's really funny that you bring that up because when I got home, right before the rally, the the transmission in that car is kind of funky. They're
Okay.
just not the greatest. They're in the all the C7s and in that car and a couple other ones. Um, but it was clunking like really bad. Like if I was going from first gear to second gear, it would feel like I got rear-ended.
Oh
It would
wow.
it would lurch you forward that much because of the hard shift. So I went to the dealership and I was like, "Hey man, I'm about to go on this long rally, and I'm not going to deal with that, right?" So 20 quarts of transmission fluid, and it pretty much fixed it. But
Oh,
so I get back, and they also deleted the driver. It's like a learning transmission or a memory transmission or something. So they
yeah.
deleted that. But when I get back and all of a sudden I'm just trying to go like 45 and like a 35, the RPMs were going like crazy when I shifted down because it was crown foot. The car had learned crown foot and not like normal driving. So I go to the dealership again and I'm like, hey man, this thing's all jacked up. Like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm going down from like 50 to like 30 and it drops down to like first gear instead of
Oh,
like, yeah, it just goes all the way down to like first gear instead of gradually going down.
yeah.
And so what they figured out, they're like, well, what did you do the last like 500 miles? And I was like, oh, I was driving.
Oh yeah.
I
If
was,
you must know.
They're made for driving, you know?
yeah. And he goes, that's all it is the memory learned your bad behavior, not your in town good behavior.
Your bad behavior. Your
But
business
now,
behavior.
That's
like now
interesting.
it's fine. So it's back to normal. But it was so funny because you're like, did you have crown foot? Yeah. And so did the car. The car
My
literally
car got
had,
foot.
That that's kind of interesting to think about though. Is that something in those transmissions that they so it's obviously learning this, what they call bad behavior, but what I'm thinking of is like under warranty when things go array, are they able to look in there and see how it was driven
no,
instead
it's
of
it's just really
saying?
it's supposed to be more helpful. It's supposed to be like, okay, this is how this guy drives. So it tries to learn your shift points in a sense.
That's pretty
Kind of.
cool.
Yeah, like
Your
it's
preferences and then adjusts for that. That's pretty sweet.
yeah, so it's actually supposed to be really good versus really bad.
Yeah.
Um, but it was just crazy because it just learned like crown behavior, not in town.
Whoops.
Did, did
Yeah.
you see my post in the Crown Society? It was like, hey, does anybody else feel like this guy? And it was Turbo the snail. Like, I'm trying to drive to work and I'm like, and I'm,
Oh, it's
still
horrible.
speeding, probably 70 or 80. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I feel like this is taking forever to get here.
I'm not going to say the number, but anything below a certain mile per hour, I was like,
I'll say it.
go. It's like,
I'll
why?
say it.
And then I was like looking down. I'm like, oh,
I'll say it.
it's because you're driving reasonably.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
am not. And my daily doesn't,
Yeah.
daily does what that thing does. But I was like,
Pushing reckless
I used
already.
to think my daily was pretty like, oh, she's zippy. I got in. I was like, this is a go kart. I was like, this doesn't do anything. I'm like, this thing is useless. And so I was like, I've got to reacclimate. I'm like, this is hard because after 5 days of driving like that, and then you go, I don't want to say you go numb to it, but it becomes your new normal of how you drive and how everyone else around you is driving. Coming back to being a sensible driver is
Tough.
an adjustment I didn't expect.
Yeah, an adjustment period.
Well, for your work, Ross, aren't you in like a giant truck too?
Yes. Yeah.
So
With the
you're
governor on it.
Yeah, and actually, Brett Ripley, he's an Alltech guy, so we have the boom trucks, for my business, so he's he's kind of I was talking with him a
Supplier.
little bit, yeah, I was kind of talking with him a little bit, and it's kind of funny, how everybody's kind of connected, how this world is so small, really. But yeah, 30,000 pound plus truck, you know, it's
Come
slow.
on.
It's slow. So,
Yeah,
they're
it was hard.
powerful but slow.
It's
I
cool
got
to
actually, I have a Yukon. I have a Yukon. So I mean, it's like, no.
tank.
Yeah.
It's a tank. I had a Yukon 3
Mhm.
cars ago.
Yeah.
3 cars ago, I had a Yukon. That thing is like driving a school bus. I couldn't adjust because I had sedans my whole life.
Oh,
It was like when I was pregnant with our first son, he got me a Yukon, like my mom car. I demanded 3 rows of seats. It's completely my fault. But I was a nanny at the time too. So I was nannying kids and I was gonna have my own kid. And I was like, I need space. And then
She wasn't wrong.
I was like, this thing is a tank. Like, although what I will say is the turn radius on the Yukon was insane. Like I could park that thing anywhere. I could rip it in and it would turn 90
No,
degree, no
it
problem.
wasn't the XL. It was
No, this
the
wasn't the XL.
regular body.
Just a
So
regular Yukon Denali. Like
the XL's
Yeah.
like,
that's
yeah,
a book.
dude, the XL is long enough. Like it would still fit in my garage, but I wouldn't be able to walk around the car.
Yeah.
So
You'd
I'd
be
have
like,
to open the garage. I'd have to open the garage door to get to the driver's side. Like if I pulled in straight forward. So
yeah.
when I got to the dealership, I was like, "Hey, I'm in a little bit of an older house, so the garage is only 23 feet long. Like,
They're like the regular Yukon it is for you, sir.
he's like, you don't want the XL, bro." And I was like, "Okay, cool.
I'll be right back.
Wait.
You're good."
He's gonna bring the bottle. What a guy.
Oh no.
That's so funny. Yeah, we Ross and I and like prep for this, like talking about all the old cars we've had, and it was so funny to like walk down memory lane and be like, oh my god, I can't believe I had that. How long ago was that? Ross has had more cars. We've been together a little over 10 years, and in 10 years, I could not name for you all of the ones he's had.
I believe it. I
Couldn't if
believe it. I am
he's had some of them for like 2 weeks and been like, yeah, well, that was fun selling that. And I'm like, okay. Or yeah, it's not really what I thought. I'm just gonna sell it. I'm like, okay. And now I'm like, when he buys a car, I'm like, are you gonna keep it? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't even know why I ask anymore, to be perfectly honest. The GTR's in the shop now, and the boy just has to tinker with something. So he bought like a project truck, like it's a GMC Sierra. It's a body style he always wanted. So he found one. It was a wreck when we got it. In the past couple weeks that we've had this thing, he's like put in a new driver's side seat, replace the bottom side for the passenger seat, like replace the leather covering, like so much. The headlights, the taillights have been switched out. Like the pads on the runners were kind of like breaking off. So you like pop those off, put new ones on. Like he just can't not. So like,
that's awesome though. I wish like we were talking the other day.
yeah.
And he was like, "Hey, make sure you don't use certain chemicals on the powder coat when you get for your rims, right?" And I used to detail, so like I was aware. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
But I was like, yeah, I'm not a wrencher. Like I wish I was I wish I was somebody that did that. But then I think about it when I think about all the guys I know and how much money they spend, and I'm like, I'm so happy that I just wash my cars.
Just clean what I've got and be good with that.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you what, so it's funny. I told this story to several people on Crown. So if Crown people watch this, they're going to be like, oh, she's telling this story again. But the day Ross found the GTR we have, when he found it online, we've been looking for a while. He's been looking at them for years before I even knew what a GTR was, other than like Paul Walker's car. Like that's all I knew it to be. I was like, I don't know, like, do people buy these and actually drive them? Like, I don't know. I've never seen one on the road because you don't. And I might have, but I wasn't looking for them. And until you're looking for, you know what I mean? They're
Yeah.
not like a Lamborghini or Ferrari. They kind of skate under the radar unless you know. It's like if you know, you know. So anyway, you're gonna love this story. So
I'm back.
when when he finds it, he's like, babe, he's like, I found the GTR. And I was like, go get it. Just go get it. And he's like, well, it's in Maryland. So I like book him some flights. He and our oldest son, 2 days later, fly out, bought it, drove it back. It's all good. And you know what he says to me? It's going to make you laugh. He says, it's perfect. I don't have to do anything to it.
Liar. Well, and
So the catch here is that he says, your defense is that he says, well, I told you I didn't have to do anything to it. And now it's
Didn't
literally a
have to.
completely different car
Now
than
I
the day we
must.
bought it. The completely different car. Everything.
because I must.
Yeah. It's like an addiction. It's
I
ridiculous.
was the same way for a while, but I learned my lesson, right? So I was never really, this always makes people go, huh? But I was not a big car guy for a long, like I like cars, you know, like I love looking at cars, I like driving cars, but I always bought trucks and SUVs. And especially like for what I do, I lawn care company, like I'm gonna buy a truck or an SUV. I can't pull a trailer with a Corvette, right? I mean, I probably could, but
Not easily.
You have to have the truck, and then you have to have that. If you want a sports car,
right.
you need a truck. Also.
So my daily driver for a long time was, well, I had crap. And then when I finally started to buy like better stuff, my daily driver was a Jeep Grand Cherokee. And then I had this old beat up work truck that was perfect. Like it was the perfect amount of crappy that I didn't care if something happened, but it wasn't embarrassing. And it was like low miles, but it was an extended cab long bed, like F-150 that was like early 2000s. So something happened and they couldn't get parts for it. Like they couldn't even find the parts for it anymore. And it was a drive shaft. And they're like, dude, we can't find one. So I ended up buying a Ram. And I was like, all right, I'm happy with this. And then within 3 days, I started the rabbit hole of doing stuff to it.
Oh yeah.
So I put a lift on it. I changed the interior. I put like a $6,000 audio system in it, which was stupid because you never get that money back. But it sounded really freaking good, and I made a lot of people angry, so that was worth it.
It was well money.
I still have the freaking rims and tires that were custom American Force, like $6,000. They're sitting in the garage. But I started to get bored, right? And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go to a car. I'm gonna go buy a vet. Couldn't sell the truck because everybody was lowballing me. Like it was wrapped. I had the headlights changed, taillights changed. Everything was custom on the truck. Like everything was custom. And so I put it at a very reasonable price. It was probably worth close to 60. I was just trying to sell it fast. So I was like, I'll try to get 45. Somebody offers me 42 or something, I'll take it, whatever. I got calls like, I'll give you 17 for it, dude. And I'm like, not happening. So I finally just gave up because it was months and months of low ball offers. And I traded in and I lost my butt on it because, and you're never going to recoup like custom stuff, but you hope to kind of get like a reasonable price for it. So that truck, I had like 80 grand in that truck basically. And then the trade-in value was like nowhere near half that even. And I had hoped to sell it for just half pretty much. I was like, if I get half back, I'm happy. You know what I mean? So I got the vet, didn't do anything to it, just powder coated the wheels like this obnoxious gold with flake in it just to make everybody angry. Because it was hilarious. I went to the powder coat guy and I was like, I want the most ghetto metallic gold you can give me.
Make it loud.
Yeah, because all the guys around here that have vets are older. And so we went to a car show. The first time we went to a car show and I parked it, this guy walks up right as I'm getting out. He goes, you ruined that car, man. And I go, what do you mean? And he goes, that gold? Why would you do that to a beautiful car like this? And I go, because I wanted to and because I can.
Thanks for your opinion, dude.
And I had a set of black rims already anyway. So I had like 2 sets.
Yeah.
And then I got the B and it's the same thing where I was just like, I don't really want to drop that much money in it when I first bought it.
Yeah.
after doing the rally and seeing how good of a car it is, and the fact that it's not going anywhere anytime soon, I
Yeah.
was like, we're doing exhaust, we're doing the rims, and we're doing the wrap. So
Yeah, we took a little while to do anything to our GTR. You did the wheels immediately.
Yeah, I took my time.
yeah,
In respectively,
In my time.
relatively.
It was a long time.
It was a couple months. And usually it's like the minute that thing lands on this address, it's like, all right, I'm unbolting shit, I'm moving shit, we're taking it off. I'm like the minute we brought that truck home, I was telling you about, the minute, like it was like the minute we're cleaning it, we're moving, we're pulling headlights out, we're putting new headlights out, we're like just
I already had them ordered before I even bought it. Like, just waiting,
What
going. What's
what
that?
year is it?
So this is a 2003. So this would be my fifth truck. So I've always had GMs. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. What did you say something?
No, I was thinking to myself,
Oh, okay.
square body, kind of.
It's the it's the newer would
It's
you
not-
call it classic?
2003 GMC, right? Sierra.
Yeah, so like basically 99 to like 06 was the same body style. And then like 07 and up would have been that new body style, that square body style. So it'd be like the classic, I think they call it. So anyway, yeah, I mean, ever since I was like 17, I always had a truck, like, so like you were just talking. So my first one was a gas, it was a 1500 HD. I wanted the diesel look, but couldn't afford it, at 17 years old. So, but even at 17, that was quite a truck to afford. It was used, but still had the 8 lug sweet, like HD wheels. Thought I was Billy Badass. Yeah, through the Cooper Discoverer, STT tires on it. The biggest, cranked them torsion bars way up there, so your fucking my camber was way up.
I'm like, woo!
I know, and you don't even know. But when I had that, I also put one of them Alpine flip out DVDs in it too.
No.
Oh yeah, got all the ladies with it. But
Dibs.
yeah. But so I had that. Then I think a little bit later, so kind of was dabbling with cars too. Like the Trans Ams, I really like those. And then I went into the Duramaxes. And of course, when you go into the Duramax or, a diesel truck, it's like, to me, I can't leave them alone. Like, it's like you got to do everything. You got to do exhaust, intake, tuner, fuel pumps. I mean, to the nines, tires, rims,
You gotta.
lift. I mean, it just doesn't stop. So that's why, and I already went through all that. Now we're talking for like a decade. And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I had a few gel up on me, and they were brand new, at the time, and they were gelling up. And then, it just kind of, quite frankly, pissed me off to have such an expensive vehicle that I'm supposed to rely on, and I'm left stranded. So I said, fuck it. And, I was like, we need a truck again. And my father, before he passed away, he gave us a Dodge Dakota, which, no offense, I'm not a Dodge guy, and no offense to anyone else, but it's not my thing. But obviously, if I'm getting something for nothing, I'm going to use it. And of course, like she said, I was ordering headlights for it.
Wheels.
Like I got the RT Dakota wheels for it. Like, I couldn't leave anything alone.
That's ridiculous.
But anyway, so I made it look pretty nice and drove it for a while. But, like you were saying, I wasn't quite the most proud of it. It was a little, there was that somewhat embarrassment factor. It had quite a bit of rust on it.
Which you spray painted black and camouflaged very well.
And it was a two-wheel drive. I know.
Problem solved.
So with that being said, it was kind of like, it's nice to have the bed and it worked out for a while, but it's like when we have extreme weather, snow, all that, you want to use a truck. Two-wheel drive is not going to do me any good if something, was to happen. So, I
And they're
found
small.
in this new truck, I was like, it's got to be a gas. No gelling. I'm going to have no temperature issues with the fuel. That's what it's got to be. So went back to crew cab, 3/4 ton, gas, done. Like, and I know now, don't quote me, anyone. Okay.
You're being
None
recorded.
of you. Yes. But
We will
I'm not
quote you.
going to do anything else to it. Okay.
You heard it here. Everyone
Not
heard
doing
you.
anything to it. I like it just like it is. So,
Craig, what's the over-under for you on whether or not that's true?
I mean, I'm going with 90% sure something else is being done to it.
what exactly are you guys entailing with that?
You said nothing.
Now there's stipulations. Now there's stipulations of I'm not
If
doing
I find a
anything.
pair of wheels that I like better.
Here's the thing is that, tires degrade over time. So it's like, I'm going to need new ones.
I'm talking normal, not normal maintenance.
General maintenance. Cosmetic purely.
There's two things that I will allow as a stipulation to happen.
Thank you. There is stipulation.
Pink fuzzy steering wheel cover.
Nice.
Yeah.
Dye.
Yep.
Fuzzy dye.
And that's it. Those are the two, other than maintenance.
Come on, man.
I'm with you,
You
my
gotta,
man.
you gotta give me something.
I see whose side you're on.
Yeah, I see it too. So anyway.
Dude, if you're gonna rock the mullet with the pink fuzzy steering wheel on a truck,
Absolutely.
oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Why not?
Did you guys see what Wheeler bought? The Lambo Dad? You see Lambo Dads?
I've never met him, but I have seen him on Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah, I haven't met him either, but the Rolls Royce limousine.
I have not seen that yet.
So he bought a Rolls Royce limousine. It belonged to Stradman's buddy Burlocker, I think.
Okay.
So they bought it from him and like they're pimping it out. And
Right.
according to Frank and possibly them, and they mentioned it. I'm not sure. Frank said it might happen. I don't know. They might bring it on south.
Nice.
Oh, I was so afraid you were going to say west. And I was like,
I
No,
thought for sure you were going to say west. I was like, here we go.
No.
Everybody's going to west. I know.
dude, here's the thing. Like I looked at West very hard, right? And I was like, it looked like it would be a lot of fun. But here's my issue with West.
Absolutely, it would be
I gotta take 2 days pretty much extra just to drive to Denver. So I gotta drive, stop, go.
4.
And okay, right.
No.
And then back from Las Vegas. Because I'm not shipping my car.
Right.
Like I'm not doing that.
Right.
So the only other option is you fly in to Vegas, you rent a car,
Right.
then you don't have something that's yours and you're kind of
learn
like,
Yeah.
hopefully I can catch up.
Yeah.
Logistically, it just doesn't. I mean, and I'm not saying we'll never do it, but it's just
Right.
not in the cards for this year.
Right. And
Well,
there
I-
might,
Like
yeah.
I can take vacation and pretty much work from anywhere.
Yeah, I have
But he has
vacation.
very limited
limited.
days. So it's like we got to be smart. But we may be making an appearance on North.
nice. Nice.
Possible.
It's
Don't quote us.
we're trying to figure it out. But it's my birthday weekend. So I was
Oh, that's
I was-
awesome.
maybe we
Nice
can
little present.
we're gonna figure out the logistics, but I
Sweet.
think we might be making an appearance on North.
I was trying to do it with my buddy who has a Porsche. We were just gonna go in his, and I was like, "We'll split it. You can drive." He's a track animal. Like he does track events all the time.
Those
And
cars
they're-
are track animals. I
Yeah,
mean, they beat up that track. They're amazing.
But the 2 track events, and he's already done the one in Wisconsin, Road America or whatever. I think it's called Road. Yeah, he's already done that. Something happened to his car. I'm not going to say what, but it was an unfortunate thing that happened. The car's fine. He has it back. But
Good.
at the time he's like, dude, I don't want to commit to this because I don't know what's happening. So I was really trying to pull double duty too. I was trying to do north and south, but south
Right.
is the only one I'm locked into. I don't think I can pull north. I have classes too.
Oh yeah.
So that's one of the big things is like with school, I just don't know what my schedule is. And especially I worked ahead. Like it was funny for this year for South. My teachers all emailed me because there was this week, like 6 weeks early, right, where I just worked ahead by like 2 months, pretty
Yeah.
much, way past the rally even. Like so, I get these emails from all these teachers of, are you dying? Like, is something wrong? Like, why have you turned all this work in so early? You know,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I'm doing this trip and I
Man,
don't like to be
like,
stressed out for the weeks leading up to a trip. So I just want to make sure I'm done. And then when I get home, I can recover and not be stressed out about work.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that can happen again and
Yeah.
it's fine. It should be. But
What are you
yeah,
going to,
I'm sorry.
what are you going to school for?
So I'm going back to get my second degree. I'm going for organizational leadership studies. It's kind of a
Nice.
broad like business management thing. I backed
Yeah.
myself into a corner with my last degree, which
Okay.
is wine, spirits, and beverage management.
Well,
nice.
cheers to that, sir.
Yeah.
So, um,
Okay, so I've always been comfortable around cars. Grew up around them. But I've never been behind the wheel of a car that powerful until obviously we got one. So then it was like, oh, if I F this thing up, it's on us. You know what I mean? It's not like I went to an experience where they're super insured and it's like, oh, I jacked up an experience car. You know what I mean? Like this was ours. And if I F it up, this is a big, big problem. But I kind of, my first time behind the wheel of it, I remember I was like terrified because I'd seen what it can do. I felt what it can do. But the passenger seat to the driver's seat is two worlds. It's two completely different worlds. When you're in control, you don't feel all of what the passenger's feeling
yeah, yeah,
at all. So I am like, I'm having like tunnel vision at some points in the passenger seat of this car because the force is so strong. And I'm like, he's talking about wanting to do more. And I'm like, have you lost your mind? I'm like, for what? But then I got behind the wheel of it. And on Crown is when I really, really, really got comfortable with that car. I was driving like I'd been driving it my whole life and it was fine. But there was moments where he would be like, oh, stop. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm fine. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, knock it off.
My butthole puckered up a little bit a couple times.
And he's like, he's like grabbing the handle. He's like, oh, I was like, and I'm sitting over here like,
couple
I'm
of
like,
turns.
I was like, a little
like,
different over there, huh? he's like, I don't like it over here.
no, that is complete. Like Elliot didn't drive the CTSV, but so I've always been behind the wheel, right? Every fast car I've ever been in, I've always been behind the wheel. So my buddy, not the guy that I was going to do north with, but one of his friends has a brand new. It's not even the Turbo S. It's like a 911 Carrera S or
Nice.
something nicer, right?
yeah.
Fast. And he's like, I rode with them to dinner. So I rode with my buddy in his brand new Cayman. And he bought a Cayman because he's more of a track guy and a daily drive. He daily drives it. So he just wanted something he could, not crazy, especially in the Midwest with winter. You don't want too much horsepower and screw yourself up. The other guy doesn't drive his 911 all the time. So I rode with my buddy. The other guy's like, hey, if you want to ride back with me, no problem. He punches it. And we just ate, and I feel all this food. I didn't puke, but it's the first time that I've ever been like, oh, like it just
Telling
You
you,
nauseous. Like,
yeah. And
you
you
start like, like with enough force, you do start getting tunnel vision. These things,
So,
like, oh man,
the best way that I can describe it is that it's like similar to a roller coaster.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
you're on the roller coaster and you're just hanging on for the ride. Like,
Yeah.
whatever it's, you feel your guts just like going every which way. And I'm not much of a nauseous person. Like I don't really get motion sickness like on boats or anything, but like and I wouldn't even say on tail I was, but when I was riding with her and we weren't even what was what was the road course before the
Devil's
tail?
Triangle.
Devil's
Yeah,
Triangle.
Devil.
That's where she was. That's where you were driving, wasn't it? Was
No,
a little bit of Devil's
a
Triangle.
little bit of it, yeah.
Yeah. So a little bit of Devil's Triangle. That's where I
He's
was
fine.
like, okay, like
I
And I
can
nothing against her. It was
no.
just me not being in control.
Well, Devils is also
Maybe.
the
it feels
so
different. You can't anticipate anything, you know?
but that road's
And
crazy no
right
matter
in front of
what.
you, you know, you
Yeah.
have the handles.
That's just a crazy road no matter what. Like when we were going, because we were way behind everybody, we were leading the pack for a while to get there.
Yeah.
And we just left the gas station early. I just looked at Ellie. I was like, hey, let's just jump in front. That way we're kind of through it. By the time all these people want to go way faster, catch up.
Yeah.
And of course, we had local traffic that would slow us down in the no yellow. So I look up and there's freaking 40 cars behind me. And I'm like, well,
Shit.
guess I'm
What?
doing this now. And I mean, I drive like I'm not going 90 through stuff.
You can't, yeah.
Speed
Unless
limit,
you're trying
maybe
to drift.
speed
I
limit
mean,
like leading up to Devils is like 45. We were going like 65. So I was moving enough. It's not like crazy.
curves, it's nothing
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
But there was like that random construction in the mountain, like right before, right? So that long little light that everybody's so we were the first car, and I'm like, I'm not getting out.
No.
I don't want to get out to people screaming at me like, go faster, right? So I don't get out. Elliot gets out to film. Paul, the guy in the Camaro.
Cody?
Yeah. So he
Cody?
was right behind us the entire time. And he was like, hey, your driver's doing awesome. Like, tell him he's doing a really good job.
Isn't that the best?
Yeah. So I felt like
It is.
so great. But then we're going into Devils, right? And everybody knows where that really starts if they've been there before. Lambo pulls into double yellow, flies past me. Two Porsches get out, double yellow, fly past me. A McLaren does it. First chance I get to pull over, I just pulled over. I was like,
Yeah.
not holding everybody back, right? We get into Devils, and I'm kind of going not super slow, but not super fast. And then we get to those crazy ass hairpins that are like all of a
Switchback.
sudden you're straight up though. It's like flat, turn in, and then straight up. And I'm like, ah, I'm driving, and it's still like, oh, okay.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's crazy because cars like ours, like yours and ours, they're heavy
Yeah.
and they're not designed for that. Like a Porsche can whip through that. Like they're made for those twists and turns and sharp switchbacks and everything. Our cars really aren't. Like I remember when we tracked it at the Autobahn, like he's punching it pretty hard. And I was like, it's okay.
Well,
And that was the least confident he ever felt in the car. He was like, it was just all right, you know? And then he took a ride in his brother's Porsche and he's like, holy shit, it's just different. And
it's
I'm like, well,
completely different.
they're
So,
designed for it. And
but
they're just
and
the
I'm not
wheelbase is different, you know, it's just
I'm
different.
not gonna take away from the GTR at all because I feel like partly that was my doing because they they broke records at the Nürburgring
Yeah.
Well,
and
yeah,
everything else. So I feel like part of it was my fault because I was running 21s. We
right.
also had staggered wheel setup, which you want a square wheel setup.
We had a show
I
car.
mean, it
You
wasn't
you were set up for straight line speed and also show car. Yeah, if you build the GTR to be meant to take whatever you can throw at it, it's gonna do it. Same as probably a CTSV if I really put the right suspension, everything. Like that
Right.
that car's a whale, so it's not gonna be close to the GTR. But I'm saying like
Car
any car, if you build it right, is gonna be able to handle stuff better.
Yeah. We
well
just built it for show.
what does the CTSV even weigh?
4,100 and or yeah, 4,150 pounds, I think.
They're only about 100 or not even pounds heavier than us.
Yeah. I'm like,
Didn't realize that.
It's heavy. They're heavy cars.
like a tank.
So, I mean, the way that I had it set up wasn't exactly perfect. And in the turns at the Autobahn, now I went a different time I went for a urban city track event. It was just not enjoyable because it honestly felt like a regular daily driver that has a bunch of horsepower. So on the straights, I was catching up to everybody, but then, all the NSXs and Porsches were taking off
Oh my
or
God.
getting away again. So, well, and then on top of that, I cooked my OEM brakes too.
Oh, they were smoking,
They were smoking.
like billowing
like-
smoke off the
Yeah,
brakes. I was
completely
like,
roasted them. So like,
okay, you gotta upgrade those before Crown.
so we had to
Oh,
upgrade.
so it was okay.
No,
Yeah.
this was like what, a month, 2 months? It was in August. This was an August track event.
Yeah. It was a couple months.
Okay.
We tried in August, and I'm glad we did because honestly, we weren't gonna upgrade the brakes before
Wasn't planning
Crown.
on-
And then we did the track event, toasted him, and then he was like driving through town, and he's like,
It almost wasn't stopping
These are
regular
bad.
driving.
Yeah.
Like it was spongy, like spongy for regular driving.
I was like, beef him up.
I was like,
like, let's go.
so I feel like I probably cooked the fluid and the rotors and the pads probably got glazed. I mean, I want to say, well, I should say for a fact, they were definitely glowing because we had people taking videos
Video.
after we came back and they were just like,
Ugh.
Hold still. I'm like,
so
I was like,
it's just a heavy car and
Yeah.
it just,
you gotta have good brakes.
just
Cars
took
like
some
ours.
time to get used to. But so with that being said, going back with your question before while she was gone, he was asking me, and I guess we'll have to cut this out again. I really don't care if you put it in there either. It's just kind of like one of those things, like I said, it was just like it just snowballed. Once the thing dropped, it was like, well, if it's out, you might as well do this. And because if you want to do it later, you're gonna have to drop it again. And it's like,
Well, and just to drop it's a cost. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
because I can't do it.
and it's not a
or
small cost.
I haven't.
And we're not gonna. If it were a GM vehicle, I think you could. But just because GTRs are so finicky and specific with what type of work is required and how and in what order, I feel like we had to find a specialist of sorts. And this guy is really good that we have doing it. It's pretty much all he does, really, to my knowledge anyway, is basically strictly GTRs. He's really good at it. The guy's a genius. But that said, when he was pitching to me that he wanted to do the turbos, and I was like, no, like, because in my head, it's either turbos and everything else or nothing. We can't just do turbos because, like he said, I don't want shit
Hey,
breaking.
So
I'm
she
like,
started it. So
I
you
know.
hear this?
It
You
was
hear this?
me.
I just
It was
wanted
me.
turbos.
And I was like,
And she
no.
was like, well, if it's out, you may as well do it.
I'm like, do it all.
Okay.
I'm like, do the trans, do everything.
It's
I'm
all
like,
right
do
when you
not-
want to do it.
I'm like, don't mess with me, man. I'm like, because I'm not trying to break down in the middle of South Carolina, then trailer it, and then have to fly home or find transportation for ourselves home. That right there is exceedingly more than the cost of dropping the motor again. You know what I mean? So I'm like, just do it. Just get it over
I was
with. And then we don't have to
absolutely down.
worry.
I was absolutely down with that because, after building and all that, I mean, we can at least get to full potential, with building it correctly, instead of building it kind of half-ass just because we want to be cheaper and then have to tune back torque. It's just like, that's no fun. Who wants
And
to do that?
we know a common theme here is that he can't leave shit alone. So if we would have gotten that car back with just turbos in, let's say, March, he would have ripped it a few times and been like,
I would have gave it till probably
August, and then we have 2 months until Crown to get shit
October,
done.
November,
Yeah.
Maybe after Crown. I don't know.
I know. And the answer is no way. So
Well,
dropping it.
What you said about having to find a specialist is one of the reasons that I went with the CTSV and the Corvette, actually. So I've always made this joke to everybody that I've talked to when it comes to buying cars. I was like, yeah, if an oil and filter change is more than $100, I'm not buying the car. It's just that joke of like, because I actually, when I bought the Corvette, I looked at Porsche, I called and I was like, hey, just out of curiosity, what is an oil and filter change on whatever? I think it was a 911. It was a little bit older, but it was a 911. And the guy's like, oh, you're looking at $350. And I was like, talk to you later. And then I called the Jag dealership. I looked at an F-Type and I was like, hey, what's a oil and filter change? And the guy goes, oh, you're looking at like 325. And I was like, talk to you later.
Bye.
Called the Corvette, the Chevy dealership, and I was like, hey, what's an oil and filter change on a Corvette? And the guy's like, which one? And I go, just the Z51. I didn't have a Z06. I just had the Z51. The guy goes, oh, you're looking at like $70. And I was like, well, we're buying that one.
So now what was in that? Was it the LS3?
I think so.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
didn't have much. It was like 450 horsepower.
It was still good though, right? Because I want to say Ryan, my brother, had that same motor. I want to say he had like it was like either a 10 or a 2011. It
Okay.
wasn't a Z06, but it had some power, and we took it out one night and got a little shitty, you know.
It was fun. Ryan spun it out once, and it was the funniest shit I'd ever seen in my life. I was pregnant with our first, and we were having like a bonfire in the backyard, and Ryan left to go meet friends or something. I don't know what he was doing, but he went to go take a turn around. Well, it was like a stop sign, and he went to go turn. Thing broke loose from him, and he spun out in an empty lot on the corner, and all we heard was my bad.
You know, because we were all right there.
Because
like
to know Ryan,
like less than 100 yards away.
yeah, to
Like,
know Ryan is to know that he's a perfectionist with his vehicles. Like he
we just heard like,
and we're like,
boom.
I was like, he jumped a curb, hit some grass, like it was bad. And sober Sally here, because I'm pregnant, I'm like, Ryan is gonna freak. And my bad. And we were like, ah! We died laughing. And then now it's like every time I'm around him for any longer than what, like 3 hours, somehow I'll find a way to like be like, my bad.
Yeah.
And that was like 10 years ago. I haven't let it go. It was the funniest thing ever.
Yeah.
But he called his it was all blacked out, like totally murdered out, and the license plate was Batman's. It was cool. It was awesome.
That's dope. It was LT1. It just had the LT1 in it.
LT
For mine.
Early 90s?
No, it was 2000. That can't be right because it says, so I had a 2014.
LS1?
Yeah, LS. Sorry, I don't know why I said it.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had, you know, Firebirds, Trans Ams, the GTO. So I'm kind of familiar with a little bit, not very much. But
what did the most recent Trans Am?
That was an LS.
It was
same motor as he's talking about.
I don't know what it says. So it says 6.2 LT1, which is right. So I have the
LT.
It was it's 2015.
Oh, okay. So that was much later.
Yeah.
I was way out of them after that point.
Yeah, no.
Trucks. I was into the trucks and all that other stuff.
What was your last Denali truck?
13. Yeah.
That one gelled up on us on New Year's Day, and he sold it a week later.
Yeah. It was the LML. It was completely deleted. Everything. It was a garage queen too, like heated garage. So
yeah, she was needy. She was needy.
And
although
that was the probably most conservative build that I had on the trucks.
Yes.
It just had 33s, you know, 20-inch, what were they, BMFs, you know. I called them the big motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Or, you know.
You bought it mostly done.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty much built by the time we bought it. And I was like,
tuned.
oh,
like tuned, ready to go. I was like,
So we can just enjoy.
Yeah.
Some other Ross out there
Craig,
built it. Was it
yours?
Craig's? Because when you were talking about American Force wheels, we just brought this up today. Because when I met Ross, he had we met in the fall of 2010, and he had a 2011 Chevy Silverado. And at the time, it was too new to basically do anything to it. You couldn't find anything to do to it yet because it was too new. And
Well,
I remember being like,
because in 2011 they introduced the urea,
yeah,
the diesel exhaust fluid. So that was like brand new. And no one
couldn't
wanted
figure
to
out how to do
touch
the
it.
delete and
Yeah,
all this
no
other
one wanted
stuff.
to touch it as far as all the diesel shops. They were like too afraid because of emissions and
Like, oh, what if emissions comes here? And I'm like, well, it's not here now. So so the point is, with the wheels, we were talking like he was like we were talking about the wheels we are planning to get for the GTR. And yeah, that's another conversation. But the point is, we were talking about how in the past it was like not a big deal because they weren't as expensive. And I was like, do you not remember the conversation about the American Force wheels? And he was like, no. Like,
American Force wheels in comparison to most wheels is like,
truck wheels. Yeah.
it's a lot, and it's a big pill to swallow as far as when you're used to a certain number on wheels
Yeah.
and say tires together. You're like, oh, okay, that is what it is.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna throw a number like wheels and tires, like $2 to $3 maybe, for pretty much anything. But then once you start getting into the 5,000, 10,000 plus range, you start contemplating your decision making skills.
Yeah, I mean that's why I powder coated this factory stock rims, because I was like, dude, everything I'm looking at that I want is
Rims look cool, by the way.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
honestly, though, I don't know that I would change them just for the sake of changing them because they
No.
look pretty freaking sweet. Like,
it worked out.
yeah, like it was a traditional 5-spoke that came on the truck at the time, and he was like, well, I want them bigger. And I'll never forget. Okay, so it was this whole conversation. We got the American Force wheels, was all good. He hands me this cleaner and he's like, spray the shit out of these wheels. We're going to clean them. And I'm like, okay.
Made a big mistake, Craig.
I soaked these motherfuckers.
So you know that was it Meguiar's hot rims? It's kind of like a pinkish purplish bottle.
Yes.
It's like hot purple maybe color. So these were, and you're I'm sure familiar with American Force. They were uncleared. There was no
Raw.
clear coat. They're just raw
metal.
And I didn't realize this at the time. So we're at the car wash, and I don't know how old were they? Maybe a couple weeks, if that.
Weeks.
Couple weeks old.
Brand new.
Just like the first time it got dirty, and she's spraying them and
going nuts. I'm like, how can I help?
Yeah, and I was just messing with her. It wasn't her fault. I told her to spray him, but
he's to this day been like, it's not your fault. And I'm like,
completely etched him. Like it burned.
Like they were scored. Like,
so now, mind you, I understand what it takes, but something about that particular cleaner and those particular wheels, it wasn't just, oh yeah, just take a buffer and cut these wheels. Like I tried that.
Yeah.
Took them off, cut them, and it literally was deep. Like never again. Like, because when I had them mounted and balanced, I remember telling this place, it was called the Hot Rod Barn over.
Oh I forgot
it's
about them.
Probably 20 minutes west of us.
They're gone now, right?
Yeah, I think so.
It's cool.
They dealt with all custom hot rods and trucks,
it was literally
whatever.
an old barn. It was really cool.
Hot rod
They
barn.
restored it. It was awesome. Right off the interstate. It was cool.
I talked to them about, putting a shot of clear coat on them. And they're like, we usually don't do that because once you do that and say like a rock chip happens, then you'll have a spot and then you'll have to have them redone. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense, And I'm, especially at that time, every wheel that I bought before, was cheap,
Yeah.
In comparison.
Well, yeah, we'll just call it in comparison, but everything had a clear coat or something of that matter over the top, so you could put whatever you wanted on them, and they'd look just as good as the day you bought them. But
Yeah, that's
because I had no clue what I was doing, and it was probably the most expensive rim that I ever bought at that time. So of course,
I have like
anyway,
PTSD.
yeah, me too.
So now I'm like, can we put this on
And
there?
and it's funny because I actually mentioned to him the other day, we were talking about cleaner products,
Yeah.
and he just got his wheels powder coated, and I was like, hey, just a
Yeah,
heads
he
up.
was saying he used to detail, and he was like,
We were talking,
Yeah.
and I was like, hey, just be careful what you spray because I have PTSD.
or scarred. That's where that conversation stemmed from. Oh, nice.
That's what I have on my truck.
That's
I
cool
love
as
it.
hell. That's
But
really
they were brushed. So they were actually like brushed aluminum, and then it was the color. We did custom color, and the faceplates were custom, and I loved them.
They're
And
cool.
it was one of those things where when I went to start to clean them, I started to kind of freak out at first. So I just never leave anything on very long. But I clean my wheels and tires and the whole car so much that it doesn't take, it's the guys that like have a Porsche that track it like 12 or 15 times and then decide to clean their wheels once, that they need that product to stay on for a long time. Or
Yeah, true.
people that neglect their cars, because the stuff I use will turn like your brake stuff purple, right? So you'll see the iron kind of coming out. I've never seen it on any of my stuff really, because I just keep it so clean.
You're good at keeping them clean. Yeah. We just got calipers painted, and when I picked them up, the guy was like, man, it's a light color. I'm not gonna give
Did I tell you
much
about
away.
this? Did I tell you about this at Instagram?
So it's a pretty light color. GTR calipers come standard is this like orange, you know what I mean? Like a burnt orange look. And they're different now. But when I picked him up, he's like, man, these are gonna be impossible to keep clean. Do you guys daily that car? And I'm like, no. And he's like, oh, okay, you should be fine. And I was like, and this guy's so fucking crazy about keeping his car
crazier
clean.
than I am, but yeah,
I know, but the point is like guys like you guys, it's like it's not a big deal to keep the car clean because I don't have to daily it. And if there's big weather, I'm just not going to drive it. I don't have to. I'm not in a pinch to have to drive the car.
But
unless you're on Crown Rally and you have to drive through rain, that's a different story.
Tell them what color they are.
They're pearl white. They're pretty. They're really pretty. And they kept the Brembo decal on there. Oh, they're beautiful.
Now, this was the reasoning behind. I know a lot of people are going to have problems relating here on this deductive reasoning, but
we don't care about your opinion. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I wouldn't.
My thing is that I wanted a color. So McLarens, Lamborghinis, all of them, they always seem to have a caliper that pops. Whether it be neon green, neon yellow, whatever it is. I was like, I want a color that's going to pop, that's going to be different than the rest of the GTRs out there. So
you got it.
It's going to pop. But so on top of that, I also wanted something that was going to pop with everything that we decide to do from now on.
Yeah.
So anything we decide to do from now on, it's going to go.
Yeah, it's a safe play, but it's also a cool play because it's so different.
It's white.
Right.
So
it has a slight
it's pearl
to it, but it's not as rainbowy as most pearlescent colors. You know what I mean? you really have to look at it or really have the sun catch it just so.
It
We
looks
didn't
right.
want big sparkles on it. We just wanted it to be subtle enough to really pop in photos, like where a camera lens would pick it up really bright. But then with the naked eye, you'd be like, oh, it's pearlized. That's really cool. You know what I mean? That's kind
If
of,
it's clean.
it's clean.
Right. You want a dragon, not a unicorn.
Right. I want
Exactly.
that unicorn.
Exactly.
That's right. The fire flaming unicorn. That's the new license plate. The
You can't have
unicorn.
sparkly. You can't have sparkly.
You can't have the unicorn.
Yo, my God. Like the unicorn.
Knocked over.
Oh, you can
but-
tell we have kids. We're like
Yeah.
quoting Despicable Me.
Yes.
Yeah.